Ever wonder why you can rattle off the Pythagorean theorem flawlessly, but figuring out a basic tax form feels like you're trying to decipher some ancient language? Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the hidden logic behind the modern education system. We're taking a close look at the architecture of modern learning to decode exactly why these massive practical gaps exist in our lives, and more importantly, how we can actually fill them. Let's jump right in. It's literally a universal frustration, right? Why did we spend years and years learning about physics, but absolutely 0 hours learning how to handle our money or how to manage our own mindset? You graduate, you step out into the real world, and suddenly it hits you. You know the entire periodic table, but you're completely lost when it comes to practical, everyday life skills. But as we're going to see, this isn't an accident. Because here's the kind of fascinating truth. The system isn't actually broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do at scale. It was built primarily to create basic literacy and numeracy. It was built to develop standardized, measurable skills, and to produce people who can function well within highly structured systems. Crucially, the whole thing was designed to ensure fair, scalable evaluation. When you look at it through that lens, you realize education is highly optimized for the mass production of foundational knowledge, not necessarily individualized life training. Think about those traditional subjects for a second. Math, physics, chemistry. They're the heavy hitters because they're totally objective. There are clear right and wrong answers. They are standardizable, meaning you can teach the exact same syllabus to millions of kids everywhere. And they're testable. On the flip side, practical life skills like health, money, and mindset, those are messy. They're constantly changing, heavily influenced by culture, and entirely dependent on personal context. Take a quick second to digest this really profound quote. Schools teach what is familiar, not what is relevant now. I mean, that perfectly hits the nail on the head. It captures how the educational system fundamentally prioritizes what can be measured on a massive scale over what might actually be the most useful for you as an individual navigating the modern world right now. Familiarity is just so much easier to manage and test. Notice the stark contrast here. Schools cling to what is stable and proven, while avoiding what's evolving and uncertain. The practical skills we really crave are like navigating a constantly shifting ocean, and life simply doesn't have an answer key at the back of the book. An institution built entirely on standard evaluation just can't cope with that level of uncertainty. So, this brings us to the 4 major hurdles why life skills are excluded. Let's break down exactly what keeps these topics out of the classroom. First up is the subjectivity problem. There is absolutely no single magic formula for a right mindset or lifestyle. Think about it. What is the right way to manage money? For some, it's aggressively saving every single penny. For others, it's investing heavily in risky assets. Since there's no one-size-fits-all formula, it becomes an absolute nightmare to teach as a standardized subject. Which leads us directly to a massive systemic roadblock. How do we score this fairly? I mean, really, how? If a school cannot fairly evaluate a subject across its entire student body, it generally just won't teach it. The entire architecture of modern learning rests on fair and objective evaluation. A correct algebra equation is, well, correct everywhere. But imagine trying to grade emotional intelligence, resilience, or decision-making. Imagine a teacher saying, "Sorry, Jimmy, you only got a C- in personal resilience today." It's practically impossible. Grading deeply personal internal characteristics at scale just doesn't work, so the system simply skips it. Hurdle number 3 is the teacher capability problem. Teaching physics? You just need a textbook. Teaching healthy financial habits? That requires actual lived experience and judgment. We really can't expect every single teacher to be a seasoned financial expert or a master psychologist with the last life experience needed to impart these highly subjective skills to a room full of incredibly diverse students. And then we hit an uncomfortable truth, perfectly captured right here. No establishment wants to upset the apple cart. Basically, teaching real-life topics inherently carries risk and controversy. Large public systems are literally designed to minimize friction, and diving into the raw realities of modern life is basically an open invitation for exactly that. Think about the actual risks of teaching these life skills. Discussing money inevitably touches on complex, messy issues like inequality, capitalism, and risk. Teaching mindset gets into deep philosophical beliefs. Health education often brushes up against highly sensitive lifestyle choices and cultural norms. Exploring any of these areas can create disagreement, challenge authority, and deeply conflict with personal family values. So schools just keep it surface level. All right, let's move into the hidden trade-off, the matrix of education, because every system requires sacrifices to function. Look at how perfectly this maps out the sacrifices needed to maintain a massive, standardized system. To optimize for absolute consistency, the system has to sacrifice personalization. To guarantee fairness, it totally gives up real-world adaptability. And for the sake of sheer scalability, it sacrifices the exact life optimization skills we all end up needing the most. So the real issue isn't strictly what schools teach, it's what they fail to complement. A more complete system explores these vital areas: financial literacy, like saving and investing; health awareness, covering daily habits and nutrition; mental models for critical decision-making; emotional regulation for handling stress and inevitable failure; and of course, communication. These are the missing puzzle pieces. But here's the totally empowering paradigm shift. The modern reality is that schools are no longer the only source of learning or the ultimate gatekeepers of knowledge. Today, through books, the vast expanse of the internet, dedicated mentors, and your own direct lived experiences, you have unprecedented access to the exact life skills the formal system leaves out. The responsibility has just shifted directly to us.
It all boils down to acknowledging this permanent tension. Systems absolutely prefer certainty, while real life requires adaptability. Schools provide us with that stable foundation of certainty: the reading, the math, the ability to operate within a structure. But you, the individual, are solely responsible for building the crucial adaptability needed to actually thrive outside of that rigid structure.
So instead of seeing the educational system as fundamentally broken, let's just radically reframe it. School teaches structure, life teaches application. The people who grow the fastest realize that real learning actually begins the second you walk out of the classroom. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Knowing that what you need to live well goes way, way beyond what you were formally taught, how will you take responsibility for your own life skills today? If the system provided your structure and you must provide the application, what exact steps will you take next to bridge your own practical gap? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this gives you a completely fresh perspective on your own learning journey.